It's true. I only went to London for a few hours. I came here, but where the fuck were you guys 20 years ago? I was trying to get the movie for free. And nobody wanted it. We worked for another 2 years to put it out, and somehow that thing has spawned into this. So thank you very much. This is an aborted child that has suddenly decided to grow wings. All I can say is, just for a show of hands so I can understand, how many people have seen the movie before? And I hope not probably from some bad Chinese site or something, right? So, I hope not on your telephones. Just for the people who've shown up for the popcorn, I swear it's not that kind of film. So drink your stuff before if you can. If you need to take a pee, do it now. And the movie is a slow burn for the new guys. And only one personal request, which is something that I've made too many enemies with. When the movie starts, don't put your phone on silent. Put it off, because some jerk off is going to call you in the middle. And it disturbs the people behind you. Please be respectful to that detail. I have a very foul mouth, but I'll answer any questions you want in the end if you stay back. But the movie is a trip. I just saw it yesterday, and if you're sitting next to somebody who you have a problem crying with, please move. But maybe I was jet lagged. I don't know. It's that thing. So please enjoy, and it's a one-off, and it bankrupted me 1.5 times. So. But thank you very much. He loves Lee Pace, but you cannot imagine what he's doing here. If I had to one time ever do another commentary, I'll just show you what, because she's allowed to do anything she wants. When she moves, he has to light her. Then he has to see what she is, then he talks to her, then she moves, then he has to like us. There's no cameras in there, there's holes in the curtains, and they're going, and Lee is doing everything.
And he's keeping the story up.
And she can meander, she will go off, and then she will do these strange things, and I would just cross my fingers on Lee, don't let it go, and he just would put it out from her. And then, with the editor's help, with WB actually worked those scenes in and wrote the fantasies around it. And I remember that when we did that, maybe in another 15, 20 years, I might do another cut. And that cut is that there's no fantasy. Because I remember when I looked at the assembly with him in the hospital, I just said, actually, if you want to win festival awards, just leave those two in there. And take out everything else. Because it would have been it's the kind of thing that people like in an independent film. Oh, guy didn't have any money, so it's 2 people. I spent all our money and sell it and show it. They were like, how dare you have so much money? Put it all out there. So that was her casting process. And shoot it in sequence. And then the thing of it, whenever a scene would happen, I would always talk to her about it, and her mom would cry. But Katinka would never have any meal except with me. She would always come back by lunchtime, she would be on my lap, and we'd be eating, we'd be telling jokes, and all the adults were a lot more traumatized. And she was fine. And she's fine now.
Do you keep in touch with her?
I do, actually. And yesterday she couldn't come down to London. She works for Watterson's, the publishing thing. And then she has a hobby that you're not going to imagine what it is. Because I always call her my Russian tank, and she said, no, you're Romanian tank. She's this big woman, and she basically, her hobby is she loves pole dancing. And she goes for it, and she does it in competitions. So I only found that out. When I found that out about a month ago in Locarno, when we had the premiere, and I had her and I flew her and her boyfriend because they didn't have any money to get the talent over. So her and her boyfriend came over, and that's when I found out she loves pole dancing.
That is amazing. I love it. I want to talk more about Lee Pace. I mean, as you say, it's a remarkable performance. I mean, all that going on, him kind of directing her, and then this multi-layer of grief and like whimsy and you know, like he's heartbroken, but his body is broken. How did you develop that?
He's incredible in that you know, the thing looked, I can't tell you, it looked like the gayest kid shit you've ever seen at times. So when I would do it, I was just thinking like, you know, I would tell Lee, this is really serious, he's actually dying. He never questioned it. I just told him, this is serious, this is played like this, and he just trusted me completely, because when I told him just watch one film, I showed him Ponette, and I just told him the thing that was difficult for him was, which I'm sure if anybody's seen anything on the internet, you would know, is that when we cast him, he had only played one part. He played a woman in a film called Soldier's Girl. And when we did this, I wanted basically, I thought I'd find somebody from a student because I wanted nobody to know that this person could walk. So Lee Pace turned out to we created an identity for him, and then we told everybody that he can't walk. So we changed the script that the hero of the film is her father. So that's the guy who plays all the time through. We have already written that halfway through, when he finds out her dad is dead, he comes in and he takes her over. So that was the only actor I told that everybody's going to think you're the lead, but you're not. And are you okay with taking the part? And he said, okay. So when Lee came, I told him that we all had such a great time when we stayed in South Africa, but he was kept separate. He had to sit in a wheelchair, and it used to take an hour to get him in. He would come in and he was really, really depressed. So the first day, actually one thing that freaked me out was the first day she saw him, I didn't realize how scared children are of handicaps. She got really scared of him and wouldn't come to him. Then I just said, okay, just stay outside that window, don't come in and sit. Then you see that she actually starts from further, then she sits, and by the end,
and you don't see his face.
Like, don't touch him. She just wanted to kiss him. So I had to stop that. But that grew. So, but it's the kind of trouble that if you were making a normal film, a Hollywood film, or any structural film that a producer is paying for, the kind of problem you would have, you wouldn't have been able to address. She showed up the first day and she had the front 2 teeth missing. And I was like, you know what, that's great. We'll just put that into the mystic, that the mystic strengthened his teeth, the old man had the teeth, and we were working all the time, and then MRR and PHI, that's also her. She's dyslexic like me, and she thought the E was 3. And then the next day when we shoot the next year, I said, you know what, we should film the bottle. And she throws it away because she thinks he said 3. So all those things are all coming from her, but she's just being a child. But Lee had to feel those. My favorite scene in the film is the one about the wafers from the church, that thing that she gives him. And it just literally, she was just, she was saying, I said, what's that? She said, that's a frog catching a butterfly. So she would do these things and Lee would take them on. And that just kept taking me further and further and further. So for me, I just thought like, Lee, no matter how many songs you sing about him, he needs more. He was the guy, so nobody knew that he could walk. I mean, the cameraman didn't know, the production, none of the actors. So when he would come in, it would take about an hour to get him into position and act. And this wasn't really, to be fair, it wasn't for method acting or anything. It was for the child. Because if anybody has been on a film set, no matter, especially there's some film students here, no matter how dark you have people dressed in swastikas or whatever you want, it'll be dramatic, and then after some time you start having tea with them, and if you know the guy's playing the cripple, you'll get on top of the bed and start lighting, and I just wanted everybody to walk around him like delicately, so that she could feel it. So it was more for her, and not anybody else. And then on the day that he said that he could walk, I was thinking like, I forget, there was still an Indian, a guy about 8 years ago who was trying to stand for politics against Trump. He was a Republican who was going to announce, and he thought he'd get it with his family, and he said like, I'm going to run for president, expecting some really good reaction. They kind of went like, yeah. And that's what happened with her. I was thinking like, they're going to tell her he can walk. When I said that, he can walk, and because every day was so incredibly weird and different. She said, oh yeah, that's just another thing. The guys, the crew, the cameraman, I've been with him for 18 years. He was my roader. And just 2 weeks before shooting, I upgraded him to be the cameraman. He had never shot anything before, and I just said, I know exactly what we're going to do. Just bring it. He said, you. And he wasn't confident, so I told him, okay, we'll do a commercial. So we did a commercial a week before. Is he good? He said, good. And I just went in, and I knew how I was going to grade it. And I had it for 17 years. I knew exactly what we were going to do. So I just left that to him. But Lee's thing, when we told him, everybody was like shocked and crying, but Katinka was like, wait, like, oh yeah, what's for lunch? So but actually, there was another person who was angry with me, who I said sorry to, but I'm sure he never forgave me, is that we had our wrap party before we shot the movie. So when we were there, I just told everybody, I don't know when my money runs out or what part of the world we'll be in. So our wrap party is before the first day of the shoot. And on the first night when we were having it, I looked and I saw Lee Pace in this corner in the wheelchair. And he's all embarrassed because there's another guy with him on the wheelchair. And the guy's talking to him, and then he calls me over, and I go over, and that is the focus putter's dad. And the focus putter's dad was saying like, this is the guy who has balls. to cast a handicapped guy to So the police tells me, we've got to tell him. I said, you know what, I've got people here for 18 years I've worked with. They don't know. I'll take the heat. So when that happened, I was just watching for that guy in the room. I could see how he paced. So I went up there and I said, I'm so fucking sorry. I just, whatever you want, he just turned around. And he never forgave me that. I don't think he ever will. But I just had to tell him that it had to be something that had to be done. It was for no other reason. But I know he was just trying to get away from that guy's head. This is just another horrible director. He did not cast a handicap. It is just like, I don't know.
Tarsem, this movie's amazing. This is just the hospital stuff. I mean, and then you go out to 27 other countries. So how do you get your crew and your cast and the young Alexandria Leap? How do you get them all around the world?
I had a rule, which is why I changed my cameraman at the last second. It was my college professor who did the cell with me, who was supposed to do this. And then towards that time, I told my brother that we make one deal with everybody, which means the loader, the focus puller, the janitor, anybody who does anything, everybody had the same paycheck and the same contract for travel. So we all traveled first class, or we all traveled economy. And all I can tell you is people will lie down in front of a truck for you if you don't, if they think that there's nobody getting special treatment. So we all went at the time in India when nobody, this is Fahrenheit country, right? Yeah. So when we went out there the first day of shoot, it was 118 degrees Fahrenheit while raining. So that was you think you know what that temperature is, you don't. Eventually we started shooting there, but the only difference was with the crew, that when they'd go back, there was this hotel chain that they closed at that time because nobody ever wants to go there at that time. I think it's 2,800 or 3,800 US dollars per night for the rooms. I got them for $90. So these crew had private pools. So they didn't even, because we had that in the contract, that everybody stays exactly the same level and we travel exactly the same. So that was one thing I had going for me with the crew, that wherever we went, they were incredible. And it's a group I have worked with for close to 23, 24 years. I did lots of commercials. I blew all my money up. And then
this is self-finance.
It's also not a single dollar from anybody else, and that's not. And when I was trying to show it to people, I was trying to bring a box for you guys, but I couldn't find it in time out there, which is because when I had to pitch it, Fincher would help me to go and talk to people to see if they were. And the problem was I would say, they would say, is that the script? It's like 20 pages. I said, no, it's not really the script, but I have this box. And I said, this is the things that she stole. And I'm trying to tell the story, that's not the conversation you have with the producer. And they said, so where are you shooting it? Like in 3-4, and I was like, maybe 20, I don't know, 28 countries. So they were just like, it was never going to happen. So when I saw her, I just said like, and the closest thing that happened that time was my girlfriend had dumped me. And I just thought, like I was saving all this money thinking I'm going to have children, save this money now. I have no idea what the money's for. So I just told my brother, just cash it and this is 2 tickets to immortality, it's your genes or your memes. So the genes aren't going to make it, let's have the memes have a go. And that's what we did. So we just put it all into that film. So what was the question?
Location. No, but
Yes, that's right. I cannot tell you any of those stories because they were horrendously wonderful. The reason when people look at this, they go like, oh, why are you shooting green screen? Why doesn't everybody go there and everything? It's not possible. I couldn't do it. I don't think anybody. You need a crazy person with a crazy time in his life with more money than is good for him. And then you can part the two. So for me, that was the only thing that for the travel, I just knew that I had a rough idea. So I shot her part immediately in India. And then I thought, okay, what are these guys' backstories? Then I started thinking, this guy's backstory is this, the Indian is that. So all that took another 4 years of filming.
Wow.
And the locations are very difficult to get to. Yeah. And all I can tell you is when you're a location scout or anything, the first thing you look for is not the location, but where will the trucks park? And then where does everybody else stay? But then you look, is there a location nearby? And this one I just went, this is the location, I'm going to work it out. And we just went on this magical mystery tour, and just everywhere we went, that was it. It's just that, like, I don't think anybody can shoot. In fact, to do the poster, which for 2 years after everybody killed it, nobody would take the movie for free. I worked for another 2 years so I could get it on, I think about 10 or, was it 16 screens? For US? Yeah, so I tried to get it on about 16 screens. So what I did was I just thought, like, okay, after 2 years we'll take it out on those screens. So I thought I'd do a poster, you know, where Wallace gets killed in those steps. That is, if anybody knows, that's actually a well, and they're about 300-400 years old. So I was going somewhere and I saw these guys doing these patterns, and I just said, like, what's that? They were like, oh, this design, it goes down. And I get, how old are they? They said about 400 years old, and I just said, how down does it go? He said, oh, way down. I said, how down? He said, way down. I said, what is it? They said, basically, it was for taxing purposes. From about 300-400 years ago, they knew where the water level was. So the water level from the range went from what to what. You walking down would dictate on how much the taxes should be. So I said, to find out a place where there's a travel. They said, yeah, but it's bumfuck nowhere. And I said, good, let's go. I looked at it and I just said, I have to shoot here. And then, of course, it had been there for 400 years. Nobody ever shot there in any Bollywood film or anything. And then when we did it, 2 years, everybody had heard about it in Bollywood, and they just went and they said, he shot in this thing, I guess it's cool. So they'd come there with like 300-400 extras who were dancing. He's out in that location that sat there for 400 years that nobody ever filmed. And the moment we filmed, I went out there to take a picture for the poster after 2 years, and the guy who was the guide out there, he was telling me, like, I'll give you a guide out there, and he was speaking only in Hindi, and I told him, I don't need it, I've been here. He said, no, I can tell you things. I said, okay, so then he started with the spiel. And somewhere in between, I realized he's talking about my film. He said, I won't do the Hindi thing, but he was basically saying, like, oh yeah, there was film here, nobody shot here, then somebody from Bollywood shot here, and then there was a film, the first film shot here was called Duffel. And after Duffel, I was thinking, so me and my niece and nephews, we call this Duffel.
Tarsem, so many of your films always have images that like no one has ever dreamed of. Like elephants can swim. Like what the bed of arrows. How do you come up with things like that?
I did a dry run for this film for 17 years, like I said. So I did a Coke commercial where the commercial's idea was that, and the same editor cut it, where an elephant swims up to a woman and she's sitting on a pier with Coca-Cola, and he puts peanuts there and he takes her Coke. Because I knew that elephant, and I said the idea is the same, that a donkey could walk up to a woman and give her a carrot and take the Pepsi, but nobody knew that elephants can swim. So the idea was to do that. But to go and get them, they won't swim if you tell them to swim. They usually stay in these islands, the animal islands that they use them for lumbering, and if they can smell a female in heat, because they take a long time, they have one child per decade or something, so they will swim to her. So that's not been captured. So I found out where it was, so I shot 7 years ago, and for every time I went to these places, I would do commercials, and I would give people money, and because commercials are well paid, and I said, I'll come back, and like he said in the Godfather, that day may never come, but I will come back one day and I'll ask you for a favor. And all I can tell you is, don't do it like that. When I went back, not a single place was any of those alive. Anybody moved on, so I just had to reinvent the wheel in every place. But I knew that they swim, so the advantage that I had was that me and Nico over the years had reverse engineered. That's why I think a lot of critics really hated it, because it looks like we put the cart ahead of the donkey, but it was intentionally. So for me, it was just like, okay, we put them on an island, and he has to get off the island, so we use the elephant. So now on the island, what are they doing? They've been sent away. Then each guy's backstory, I didn't know. So we were just making those as we were going along, but I had the rough structure laid out, and Lee and Kritika did the rest.
It's crazy that critics couldn't also pick up on that it's an homage and tribute to cinema. I mean, like that self-reflexive element is so clear.
The line between homage and rip-off is very thin. So they'll look at that and they'll go like, oh, he's taken that scene from Baraka, and he's taken this thing from that, and all I can tell you, how many people have seen Baraka?
It's showing 70mm.
Wonderful, right? Let me tell you, do you know where that song comes from? I'm talking about, you know, when the guys are doing chak 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 that thing. Do you know how it came about? Because when everybody saw Baraka, I had a beef with it. Because everybody looked at that and they just said, oh, it's such a traditional little Balinese dance, this thing. The truth of the matter is, that was something that somewhere in the 1940s, a hippie from Germany in Birkenstocks went to Bali and went like, you guys need to do something cultural to get tourists here. He taught them that thing. And then those guys embraced it and started to tell their own stories. So everybody who talked to me about Baraka, I said, I love that film. But they were like, that cultural thing. I said, like, that's what, 30 years old, you know. I just said, okay, I'm going to use it and I'll talk about it. But I didn't realize the backlash would come like, didn't you see Baraka? You've seen that? And I go like, yeah, but I needed somebody to go mad and give you directions. And I just thought, I have no idea what they're doing, so I worked with that guy and I just said, now, do your whatever you want to do, but we're going to work out to say that you're going to explain through your people what a pyramid looks like, what the Great Wall looks like, and I found 3 or 4 cliches. I worked with him, and then we had a whack at it. And then I just knew that I had that guy in my back pocket, and when I went to the upper Himalayas, I saw this really incredible, I think it's called moonscape. This thing was all roughed up, and at the bottom of it was a stream where there was a green field. And I just went, oh, that's great. So they can just run away the mystic and get high on the really, the drugs, run into the green, and I'll go out there, and some years from now, we'll go to Bali and we'll pick up that shop. And that's what it is. I just get out there, and pick it up in Bali. So it was to a certain extent, the critics were right, who were looking for not about meandering. I said 2 things to them. One, if you see something look like this, give the benefit of the doubt to the filmmaker to say like it's meandering for a reason. And second, have you ever talked to a 5-year-old? and empower them in a way that you need something from them. Because usually when you tell them a story, it's go to sleep. You tell them whatever you want. Yeah. But if you need something from them, boy, do they come up with weird shit.
At what point did you decide I need to paint an entire city houses blue?
Actually, it's a Brahmin city, and a lot of cities have them, but this is the biggest one. It's a reflective color, and there the temperature is hotter than what I told you, and it's unbearably hot. So we always paint their houses blue legally. So I knew that we couldn't afford to paint that because it looks blue, but nothing like this. So when we went there for the recce the 2 months before, I made an announcement to the whole village that we have all the paint in the world. They could paint their houses whatever color they want. We knew they could only paint blue. So we gave them a lot of blue buckets and they all painted their own houses. So it is a blue city, but like people haven't painted houses for 20 years or 30 years. One is more blue than the other. But when we gave free paint, everybody just did it for us.
I want to give the audience time for questions, but I do want to ask just to wrap up this part, why this early silent age of cinema, like why did you choose that as the backdrop?
A lot of people give me that credit that you really must like stunt people. I'm so sorry to say, actually it had nothing to do with it. The original story when I had it from, I was looking for a time where you can read the manipulation of a person's body language. Before cinema came along, before even literature, if you've ever seen the street vendors and all that, they will, or live musicians, when they play to a crowd before there's wild music, they use your body language to give you what you need. And every time it's different. But when cinema comes along, that's pretty much it. So I wanted to make a movie about the body language of the person, which is so transparent that you can see where the story needs to go. No, I'm meandering. What was the question?
The backdrop of stunt work and early Hollywood cinema.
So then I was all the time thinking, okay, it just kept becoming even, this is like silly comic, but it was becoming more and more comic that, the person is trying to tell them something serious, but she's imagining a musical piece, and that is because anywhere I went, you couldn't find a child who hadn't seen cinema. Unless there was a special child or a special needs child or a really special situation, I couldn't find one. I would make it up and read bad if I made the movie contemporary, where the other film, Yo-Ho-Ho, is a contemporary film. So I just couldn't make it contemporary. Then I just said, okay, let's go backwards to a time when no genre is defined. And this is a guy who's worked on the set, so he's plagiarizing whatever he's seen about, like a Red Indian doing this, and he says Red Indian, she understands it to be an Indian from India. And then when Lee was going at it, Lee went like, he should have a wigwam, and I have no idea what a wigwam is. So he just did it on the voiceover. So I just used whatever I could steal, if you want to call it inspired by. I just took it from those guys and put it in. So for me, the stuntman thing was, and usually for me, which is pretty bad, I had the beginning and the ending from a long time ago. I just didn't have a film in the middle until I saw Katinka. So I always thought an abstracted version up front with Beethoven. So I did a commercial for Reebok where I used that in high speed and I realized how magical it was. So I thought an aftermath of an accident that you don't understand clear until the last scene, and then you realize that when they're showing his little film. And such a lame little stunt and he got hurt on it. And that's it. So for me, when that became something, I just thought I needed to give some form of hope on where did this girl go up. And I just thought she basically learns from that once her mom trying to tell her and move on with her life. God knows if her mom lied to her, and God knows if that's Lee or no. She basically turns around and imagines that, the reason she likes Michael Bay more than any art house cinema is because she thinks he does all the stunts. So, and it would have made it more clearer in the beginning. I was going to put a voice over an older woman saying, like, this is probably not how the stories happen, but this is how I remember. I tried it. It just looked really lame, especially after that black and white sequence. I just thought, like, no, audiences are smart enough to understand it's a child's perspective. But this is the choir. You guys are familiar with subject matter. So for me, for the critics and all, they were seeing it out cold. They were just thinking, this is just not going anywhere, without giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I think they're paid for. They just went the other way. And it's okay with me if you hate it. It's comme ci, comme ça that terrifies me.
Well, I love that you maintain that it's ambiguous in the end. And do you? And I know you don't want to answer one way or the other, but do you find people, take to one side or the other when they like that you hear those?
I'm okay with that. One side or the other is way okay. But my favorite films are that polarizing. Like I said, it's when you end up with 50% the tomato meter, people think it's a comme ci, comme ça film. I said, no, read the reviews. It's 1 star, 10 stars. 1 star, 10 stars. And that's why it comes up to 50. And so I just embraced that. I was okay with that.
Let's take some questions from the audience. And we have
Okay, that's the animation sequence. If anybody's familiar with stop motion, I actually originally had the idea for that particular one, and I was going to do it with one of my favorite animators in the world, the twins, brothers Quaid. So they had a film called, Steel Crocodile, which is one of my favorite things ever done like that. I actually met the twins but now I'm talking about, this is 20 years old, so I was saying another 20 years, 30 years, no, another 10 years. 30 years ago, I met him. And I told him this would happen one day, again, one of those Godfather lines, that day may never come. But I have a favor, I will come to you about this idea. And they just said, lovely, okay, we'll do that. And then, in between that time, while the film wasn't made up, they did the animation for a film called Frida, where literally she falls and their animation takes over. Even though it's the Mexican, something Dance of the Dead or whatever, it's in that style. But it was literally the same thing, which I had always talked to them, that it would be the girl falls and animation will take over. Then I just felt like, I don't know if I want to go back to them. And then lo and behold, I found these two German twins. So I don't know why twins love stop motion. And they had done a movie called Balance that I love. And I told them that this is the kind of stuff on something like this that I will literally give you the parameters. And this is the story. I showed them the film, and I just said, go at it. And so I very little to do with that. I just had to shorten it later on. I just thought they basically, she's imagining that since they're vaccinating her, she's being tortured. She can imagine those things. It's the butterfly, in between the blinks, she will see all that. And when they gave it to me, I just went like, as I said, it is your piece, you do whatever you want because there's so little money to pay people. And there's anybody that's more exploited than anybody in the world, it's animators. If you can pay them, just pay the tax.
Let's see. Where are you, Daniel? Can we get
No, not quite downhill. It's after doing that and getting sort of the painful anticlimactic response that you did. How did you keep going and not lose your passion to keep making films after that?
That's a great question. All I can tell you is I was depressed for about 2.5 hours. When I went up there, I was still thinking somebody will buy, and I went home and my brother came to me and he said, nobody wants the film, nobody wants it for free, nobody wants it for anything. And I was in LA in my place, I was the only property that was left, the LA house. I was just thinking, okay, we haven't sold the house. He said no, so I said okay. And I remember I had a very sinking feeling, but literally it lasted about 2.5 hours. Because I've never been a materialistic person. I had nothing, and I had a lot, and I had nothing, and it really doesn't matter to me. And so for me, when he told me that, I got scared for 2.5 hours, because I was just thinking, what if later on in life, I see something that I want and I can't afford? And that has never happened to me, because whenever I see something that I think is out of my reach, I tend to believe the grapes are too sour and leave it alone. I wouldn't have gone for it. And I thought, what if I become that guy? It'd be so sad. And then suddenly after 2.5 hours, I just come out like, nah, let's go do some more ads. I didn't want to drown the baby. My big fight with him was that 2 years we're going to work again, or 2 years we're going to work again, and I'll put it out in I think 16 screens. And the spawning of those people are the reason you're here, because somewhere in those basins, where I loved it was the ushers. Wherever I would go, the ushers who had seen the film many times saw the layering, and I think one of the best ones was in San Diego. I drove down there, and of course, no critics, no people write up anything about it, but the San Diego ushers outside me that I was driving down to come and speak to them, they had hung a bed sheet on the front of their whole thing and put red up on it. And I just said, like, I will have your children. It just broke my heart that I could see that somebody just gave it a chance. But it's a hard movie to put in a box. And I can't really blame any of the people who just didn't know where to take it out. Like the film I've done right now, even though the critics like, yep, nobody. So maybe in 20 years, it can't even get a game like this one on any, what do you call it, streaming. So if it does, so maybe you'll see another film after 20 years, so like, you know what, it was downhill after that one.
Can we go on this side?
Yo Ho Ho and how it connects to your film. I've never heard of that film.
Okay, it's a wonderful film that I saw when I was in India for the first time I ever went, because I used to stay with these, all those people wondering, I don't drink. I've never done intoxication in any form, but I can't stand people that don't drink and do drugs, because either they are recovering alcoholics or very religious. Two people have nothing in common. So I was staying with a whole bunch of junkies in the uni, and we used to get away from the cold turkey. They introduced me to a film festival, because they just needed to get away from the hostel where there were a lot of drugs. And I started seeing films then, and I saw this film. And somehow in the back of my head it stayed. And I just told my brother, whenever we have money, this is the thing that kind of is a good show horse. Because now I'm doing visual things, buy the rights to it, and then we'll do it. I never saw the movie again. I saw it, and I just said, I don't know, and it's set in a contemporary time in Romania, and of course there is no, I love Darwin. So Darwin, Wallace, all those things, I just said I needed structure to put it in. And the thing that's surprisingly shocking right now is all my friends from my boarding school are the ones who've told me how they've seen this film with me so many times before. And I had no idea, and then it became clear to me much later, not when I made the film, that was an inspiration a lot more than Yo Ho Ho. Because when we used to be in, I went to a boarding school in Shimla, which is the lower Himalayas, and my dad was an engineer in Iran. So I used to go every year to Iran, and we would watch films in Farsi, which I could not understand, but they were all American films, dubbed into Persian with no subtitles. So I just saw this film, and when we used to go back, I was the guy that had been abroad, so I was the guy who used to do the storyteller in the class. And I would come up and I would tell these stories to the class, and all my friends said, like, this is exactly that. So about 5-6 years ago, they started telling me that this is, like, we remember you coming up, because they used to make fun of it, because years later they found out, and I would tell them, I didn't know. I saw, anybody see Get Smart? So we used to see that series. I had no idea that was a comedy, because they take out the laugh track and the guys are speaking in Farsi about a and he has a telephone in his shoe. But if you've ever seen a Hindi movie, that's not over the top at all. I don't know. And I would tell these stories to these guys, and then the only other storyteller was Mrs. Anand, which only my brother will know. And that was the teacher who we loved. And she is the second half of the tale. So, story on Saturday nights, we were the two storytellers. Her story would be, she would probably read our body language and make the story up just knowing how much attention span we had and what we couldn't go. And she would tell these stories and always leave them at cliffhangers. And then the next week we'd come back, she'd be like so bored, saying, so where was I? We'd think, like, as if she doesn't know. It was so prefigured to us, because she just knew how much knowledge we had, and this is 1972. So it would be, she had Tarsem Singh. Any Indians here? That would be like an Indian Robin Hood. He, with James Bond, was solving the Watergate scandal. we knew the Watergate was something where the American guy was in trouble, and this thing, so we just knew enough. enough to get confused. And she would do this incredible stuff. So when I started putting this together, I told Nico that I should not see the original film. We should buy the rights to it because that's where the inspiration comes from. And then we bought the rights to it, and I think one day when I have the balls enough to ask my brother what the movie cost, I will go see that film. Oh, okay. Sorry, what was the other thing in 2008?
She saw The Fall and then the Lady Gaga music video, right?
But the Lady Gaga video was just made 2 years ago.
It doesn't matter.
2008.
What is it?
It literally doesn't matter. What was making 911 with Lady Gaga?
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you that idea for Lady Gaga. Again, I'm really not a good music video director because I'm not fair to musicians. Usually, like Spike, Fincher, Mark, whenever they do these videos, they actually hear the song. They write an idea for the song. I am as guilty as the critics charge me with. I actually have an idea and I wait for a song. And when it comes, I go, it fits or it doesn't. And that's really unfair. I mean, a lot of enemies in the music industry would have loved these bands, and they would send me the song, and I would say, I love your song, but I don't know what to do with it. They say, you'll figure it out though. I go, like, I doubt it. That's why it took 28 years. It was Deep Forest, The Losing My Religion from school, and then 28 years later I did the Gaga one. I was going to do exactly that same idea for Massive Attack, for a song called Angel. And I came up with that and I told it to them and they loved it, but my schedule kind of went haywire and I was gone with it. The idea was just that there's a whole group of people, if you've seen the 911 video, a whole group of people are doing something that looks aggressive or looks like bad. And then as the thing goes by, you realize it's probably somebody who's losing blood from an accidental situation. And the person who she thinks is trying to kill her is trying to save her. The person who she thinks is, like electrocuting them is trying to pump start their heart and all that. So I had all this laid out. But it was a style I was going to do in Namibia, where the desert sequence is with Alexander the Great. So once I did the cell and I just wanted to do the exterior white, and they just said, oh, America's got great deserts. I said, yes, but no desert is like this desert. And thanks that Jennifer came there and we shot it. And suddenly I was thinking, what style do I put in it? I didn't know. But then the song Angel, which I love, went away. And then when Lady Gaga sent me the song, there is only one Lady Gaga who has that kind of control with what she does. She loved the Cells opening sequence, and I said, I can't really do that again. But when she sent me the song, I said, I have an idea for you. And so great thing only when you can get that strong head of the snake. So I was talking to her, she just said, everybody else jump off the line. So I told her, here's what happens, why I've never done the music videos of other people. When I talk to them, I will explain it to you only once. Nothing will be written. Nothing will be this. I will go and do my own thing. It takes too much of my time to do a music video, and this is the idea. But the style I had come up with was because I have these Armenian neighbors in Montreal, and I love their girls. I was going to put them in the thing and the style of Parajanov. So I just said, that's the style I'm going to do it in. So I told it to her, she just cried on the phone, she said, you're doing it, you do whatever you want. And I just said, you show up? She said, yeah.
So I bet you didn't know Parajanov was inspiration on that. That's awesome. All the way in the back there.
I don't know, that's like asking which is your favorite child. You know what, if I had to pick one scene, it's the wafer one. I just think when it happened, and then when we're shooting in sequence, one particular time when she sneezed, then I knew I was getting the scroll. So it's reverse engineered, it looks like she's doing that, but I had those scenes, and I was backing to it. So the wafer one, every time I see it, I just know that if you stay for the movie that long, if you see that, you should know that something special is happening here. And that was it. So for me, it would be that. I wouldn't say any special scene because everything. I could say, anyway, Wallace died, that place is location, but now you see in every cliche in the movie with people dancing on it. Actually, from what I understand, the Batman director.
The new one?
Yeah.
Matt Reeves?
No, before.
Which one? there's too many.
Yes, noted. He went to that place because he saw that, and it's a production that needed to shoot it. And it's the kind of thing that can only be shot, but the kind of license that I have, not being a good writer, I just don't care about the writing. I was looking at the architecture and then putting in that if Wallace ends up here, this is how you will die, you don't look up. It's an impossible location to shoot in. You go out there, you look up, there's a sky, and out here, just like when you want extras, it's a problem because you have to pay people to be extras. In India, you will be paying people, but not for extras. You'll be paying the cops to hit the 2,000 people that want to get in the shot that you don't want. So there is nothing that is ever clean. So that particular area, when we went out there, we shot there. I think Nolan went there for, I think it's the Dracula with Tom Hardy, not Dracula. It's the Batman with Tom Hardy. And that was supposed to be his little, I think, nut house that he escaped from or something. But I think they sat there for quite some time and they went like, there's nothing we can do here. So they built that as a set in Manchester. And then you see a corner of it. But the original of its scale is so fascistly big that it dwarfs the human. So for me, I'm kind of glad that never got ripped off. It's just been there. So for me, there's too many things. And I've seen the movie after a long time. I was about to start another visual film about 4 months ago, and I really have to apologize to the producer. It's called Butterfly. There's a storytelling with the dad and his daughter and all that. And I was going very close to it, and then I started doing the 4K of this. And I had not seen it for about 12 years. And the moment I saw it, and I just said, I can't do anything in this theme. It'll just always look like the bastard child of this one. So I just told the producer sorry and moved on.
So we have time for one more question. Who's going to deliver?
Make it short.
Oh, thank you. What do you call it? I think the movie was really funny, and of course had an amazing story. Was there anything that you thought about when directing it, where you're like, I really want this to be humorous in this place, or I really want this joke to work for this scene? Was there any time during the filming?
All the time. It was prefigured that I just thought, and it's something that nobody likes. It's very unsatisfying, and I could see that when you're crying and the guy is crossing his fingers, it's like, fuck, don't do that. Let me have a good cry. So I knew that all that was going to happen all along. But in the beginning, there wasn't that. And it's not broad, Chaplin or stuntman comedy, which is about slipping and falling down and that kind of stuff, which I adore and love, the silent film stuff. It wasn't that. It was supposed to be with dialogue and misunderstanding. And I loved working with Eiko on something like that because she was using the costumes, and Eiko just, like I said, if you ever have to use anybody, you always tell them to, as Eiko calls it, balls out, or think outside the box, but you could never tell that to Eiko because she was Japanese and she didn't know what the box meant. She would just give you something so bizarre that you'd end up with an 800-pound coat that a person is supposed to wear and fight with. So you just had to rein her in. So for me, all that was kind of dialed into this. The misunderstandings are fine. And that happened with the girl, that when she was speaking, actually she didn't speak English very well, so every day they would just teach her one scene and I would work with her. After about 10 days, I had to take a 2-day break because she started speaking English with an Indian accent. And then what I did was, the guy who was her dad, then I got him on the set, and I would explain the scene to him, and I said, talk to her. Because anything that when she was saying, room, she just started speaking like me. And then, so for me, I knew what was happening. I just had to balance it, because I was shocked at how quickly she learned everything.
Well, we are out of time, but Tarsem, thank you so much.